All right, so February 27th, 2018. I am Jeremy Morton. You are Steve Morton. And we're going to try to tell the story of Richard Paul
Well,
White.
how are you related to me, by the way?
I'm your son. So we're going to tell the story of Richard Paul White, confessed and convicted serial killer, who you happened to befriend in the late 90s and work with for about 2 years. So we're just going to try to tell that story, and we'll start just by the story of how you two happened to meet, which is pretty interesting.
Yes, and I wouldn't say befriended. We did. I think we were friends later on, but the circumstances made it purely. I was a bail bondsman, and he became my backup. But after a while, yes, I would say we were friends. I have no doubt that he would deny that. But, it was a short period of time, so it's not like we were tight and anything like that. Our circumstances put it together, and for that brief period of time, it worked pretty good. The way we met was there was a place in Denver, Colorado that more than one, but a particular place where my wife and I hung out, and I played a lot of pool leagues and things like that, and it was kind of our thing, and we knew everybody, and they all knew us, and stuff like that, and we had an ongoing problem with a guy named Randy, who I really don't mind mentioning. Randy had a lot of issues, a lot of major issues, and in my opinion, and these were over several period of time. So, say I met RP in 1998. Could have been 97, but pretty sure it was early 98. Right in that period, we had known Randy since the early 1990s, 91, 92, 93. And without all of those details, because frankly they're disgusting, maybe I shouldn't have added that. There's a place, I believe still open in Denver, called Charlie Brown's. It's probably on State Street, maybe Sherman. And you can Google it. I'm sure it's still there, part of a hotel.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's still there.
Anyway, they had probably the biggest karaoke night. That was huge then, still huge now, but they were one of the first. And they had a big open area where you would go into the bar and / hotel and all that. And a lot of us, not just me and my wife, but a lot of people go from a lot of various places. And then when it was over, the karaoke, you go back to kind of your main place and all that. Well, without a lot of details, and it was a lot. We come out into this big open area with a tile floor and all that, and flying up behind us with one arm to the right, one arm to the left, Randy jumps in between me and my wife and literally knocks us to the floor. He knocked her to where she tumbled. I fell to the floor too, but I stopped myself like bouncing on my leg once or twice, And after everything else, and just spontaneously, mainly because of her, I just turned around and hit him as hard as I could, and bloodied his nose, and then maybe gave him 2 more punches. I don't remember, but he sprawled out, and I looked at him and told him that he was a weirdo. This all factors into RP, by the way. And I helped her up, or maybe she was already up, I don't remember, and we left. Well, in the next 2 weeks, probably month maximum, I had my car door kicked in, I had threatening stuff, and it was pretty obvious who it was from, but there wasn't really too much you can do about it. And being in the middle of bail bonds, you kind of learn that all you do is feed into it by accusing and stuff like that. So all that stuff happened, and nothing really, well, I don't know. Yeah, my wife. Anyway, so at some point in probably that 2 weeks to a month maximum period, I got done playing the pool league, just like normal, been doing it for 10 years, sat down at the bar, got a drink, and was just sitting there, and a big guy lists him at, even back then, well, when he went into prison, it lists him at 6'2", 240. And this is the guy with the fiery red hair. And lack of a better way to explain it, this is one of those guys that you just know you don't mess with. But honestly, at the time, I didn't think anything of it. Just a guy sat down next to me, and we proceeded to start talking. I'm sure he must have introduced himself and something like that. But I had just got done playing pool, and I'm sitting there having a drink, and this guy sits down, and we just start talking, and we ended up talking for a long time. And I'm sure that we never talked about anything really important or nothing that would have gave me a red flag, because I was in the middle at that time of hardcore bail bonds. And our company is hardcore. We hunt our own people, stuff like that. Doesn't make you a badass. Doesn't mean you are by any means. But that's your mental state, your framework, and all that. So I never thought anything of it. And then probably 30, 45 minutes later, sitting on the bar stool, he kind of smiles and he turns straight towards me. He's on my left, but he turns straight towards me, and he said, "You want to hear?" And he's an intimidating guy. I'm 5'11", and at the time probably 180 pounds. So I'm not tiny, but I'm not 6'2", 240. And he turns to me, sitting right next to me, and he says, "You want to hear a story?" or something like that. And I remember just sitting there and saying, "Yeah," taking a drink out of my drink and staring straight forward. But I really didn't think too much of it. I thought it was a little weird. And he said, "You know Randy?" And I laughed, chuckled, and said, "Yeah." And he said, "Well, he offered me $100 to kick your ass." And I'm sure there was a pause, and without turning towards him, I said, "Why? Because he can't do it himself?" And RP really chuckled, didn't touch me, didn't do nothing. He just chuckled, and he said, "You know, I never liked that fucker." And then he said, and he turned back around, facing forward, and he said, "I'd never do anything like that without meeting the person first." And he said, "You seem okay to me." And what can you say to that? And then we proceeded to sit there for probably another 30 minutes to an hour talking about, I'm sure we did talk a little bit about Randy, but I'm still really cautious, honestly. And then we just talked about things in general. And that's all that became of that night. And it kind of weirds you out and everything. But what ended up happening was, from that night on, him and I got along. And then at some point, I'm sure it came up a little bit.
He had went to the Ogden relatively frequently, or?
Well, I'm not sure why he ended up there, but he was interested in one of the waitresses. And he was living in the area. I really don't know exactly why he was there all the time. For the reason he was there is there was a waitress who I shall not name, who everyone knew. She was a sweetheart too, by the way. And he wanted to meet her, and not that night, but when in one of the pretty soon nights after that. So it's like, we got done playing pool, and I don't remember if it was a Tuesday or a Wednesday, but it would have had to have been one or the other. Say it was a Wednesday. Well, we wouldn't have been back in there till Saturday night or whatever. Okay. So a few days go by, and then it's like, hey man, how you doing? And what's her name? And so we helped introduce him to her.
Okay, so you kind of see each other.
And if it wasn't that very week, it was very soon. It had to have been like the second week. And so I'm not sure why I didn't really know him before that. And I maybe I should have wondered. I'm not sure how Randy knew him. I think, in fact, I'll back up a little bit. I'm sure he was in there before. This isn't some little quiet bar. It's the Ogden Street South in Denver, Colorado. On Friday and Saturday nights and most weekdays, the place is packed. There's a lot of people in there. So very likely he was in there. I don't know. I guess I never asked him. But after that, then it was, hey, man, how you doing? And to me at the time, I thought it was hilarious that Randy tried to hire somebody to kick my ass. And now he's my friend. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So then so you're seeing him every now and then at the Ogden, and then...
Well, it came pretty fast after that, and then I don't remember... I really don't remember everything or almost anything we talked about other than general stuff. But everybody knew that I was a bondsman. They knew I was a bondsman for a major company and stuff like that. But you don't. But listen, since this is being recorded, you don't walk through like you're all this or that unless you're Dog the Bounty Hunter. Nobody does that. I mean, you'd be foolish to do that. But when you're at a hometown type thing, you know, the little place, then everybody knows. And very soon, not long after, is when he told me that his dad had been the sheriff of, and I'm certain he told me San Juan County because it's always been stuck in my mind. I've never been able to verify that, but I'm certain his dad was a sheriff, and I think at that time, what was he trying to set up? I'll bet if there's a way to look it up, his dad was a sheriff. If Richard Paul White's dad was a sheriff in a southern Colorado county.
So then at some point you asked him to work for you? Or
well, he asked me, what, you know, so you do this here, and then it's just general conversation. And at that time, I was running the Eastern Colorado thing all by myself. And we already did one of these things about going to Plainview, Texas and getting the guy, right?
Yep.
So that was before I ever met RP. and your your clientele, your list just keeps getting bigger and bigger. And so when this came up, then we really hit it off because he made it obvious, and hey, I'm certain it's true. He knew how to handle himself in that situation. So we had an initial, not very big deal, but where I could really catch a guy that I couldn't do by myself, not a fast runner or anything like that, but I could do it with his help. And I don't remember the exact guy or anything, but he came with me, and we snatched him up fast. And RP really, to me, it was like, wow, this guy really, he can take you down, he can handcuff you as fast as any cop. Any cop. And he was really good at it. And then that quickly led to, well, I have this other guy I've been trying to catch. You want to go with me to get him? And then we did 2, 3, 4 of them. Maybe not that many, but probably. And then I started realizing this guy can really do this. And to make a little bit of a joke, and listen, I've told you about a different bounty hunter that from Denver. I'm not talking about him. Remember the one that they just throw their hands in the air?
Yeah.
Well, RP was very close to that because he's an intimidating figure. And I said, okay, well, I've got this guy down in Denver. He's wanted up here, but here's why I can't get him. Should I tell you this story, or should we stop and then...
No, yeah, that was going to be my next question. Yeah, any sort of bounty hunts that stick out in your mind?
I think this was the first one that really made a difference. I could be wrong because we're talking 18 months here. We did several. I cleaned up on my whole roster. and listen, it's not belittling me. I was doing it anyway, but once I had him, it really made a difference. Well, there was a guy working at a bar on Colorado Boulevard in Denver and Alameda. And like 8th Avenue, right across from the University of Colorado Medical Center. I think it's still there too. Can't think of the name, but my problem was he was wanted in Morgan County, and I knew where he was, but there was no way to get him because he knew me. So it didn't matter if I walked in the front, walked in the back, but right out if you're the bartender, off to your right is a virtual straight hallway down the restrooms, but this is a long one in this place with 2 exits out the back. And so there's no way to get him because he knows me. As soon as I walk in, he's gone. And he knew that. And so the first one that I used RP on, really, because I thought, I'm just being honest here, I thought, and I'm talking about the bartender here, okay? We're not talking about a cook. He was such an arrogant effer. I thought, all right, I'm going to show you. So what I did was, and this is where, I'll say this one, and this is where it always worked after this. I told RP, okay, and we had done 3 or 4 of the small time ones. And I said, here's what we're going to do. This guy's a real asshole. And what we're going to do is you just pretend like you've been in the men's room. And there was no cell phones or anything. And, well, there were, but none of us had one. Or, if you did, you didn't do like you do today. Mm-hmm. But I said, you just act like you're going in or coming out of the men's room. Because when I come walking in the front door, he's going to play it all cool because he's the bartender. And then when I start walking over towards his front escape, he's going to run right down the hallway. That's what he's going to do. And then you tackle him, and we're going to haul his ass off to jail right in front of everybody. And that's exactly what we did. And the only reason I mentioned the cell phones is RP called and just said some little thing I don't even remember. And I walked in, and he only had down the hall or right over me. And I went like this. But this time I was a little more vocal, and I said, get over here, come on, come on, come on. Something like that. And sure enough, he took straight down the hallway, and RP was right there, right where the men's room door was. And this is kind of the bad thing, is this guy was bigger than me, kind of maybe in between there. RP picked him up, like as he's trying to run by, and not only slammed him into the tile floor, RP like pulled his arms up next to his body. So his full weight landed on top of this guy. And I not only heard the thud, I'm not making this up, I could hear the air come out of his lungs. And then RP pulled his cuffs out, slap, 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 and then lifted him up like backwards with his arms and stood him right up, and this guy could barely breathe. Seriously. And then this is why this one matters. And then I go get the car, and we take him to jail. Well, thank God he recovered. But no shit. But after that, I jokingly, but I got to be honest here. I have to be an honest person. I looked at him and thought he was a gift. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I thought, man. But we went out, we had some drinks. We took him to jail, we went out and had some drinks. And I said jokingly, and this is the end of this little first part of the story, I said, but RP, you got to remember, we're not trying to kill him. And I really did say that to him. I'm surprised he got up. And then we went on for another year. I mean, he was, what he wanted is I made the plan, and he did it. And he was fucking good at it.
And so you're seeing each other a few times a week then, or?
Yeah, I mean, it's not like we had that big of a thing, but I'm still playing pool. So even if we weren't hunting for anybody, we have potential stuff, and we're still seeing each other a lot. And at this point, he's dating the waitress. And I really don't want to go too far into that, because after we closed the bonding office up there and stuff, he was still dating her, and she becomes an integral part of his murder spree, frankly.
Okay.
But, I mean, we can a little bit, but...
Oh, no, whatever you want to talk about. So
after that, basically, it's not like, every day there's one. I mean, but I clean my stuff up quick, and then I'm still playing the pool league. That's very important. So the reason I'm down there all the time, even though I'm in eastern Colorado running this, painting houses there, painting houses in Denver, and I'm still doing bail bonds. It's no wonder I have a pacemaker. Serious. I know it's funny, but it's true. So we were in contact nearly continuously for at least a year and a half after that.
And then how does it stop? Why do you stop coming in contact? Or
the only reason really was, and I do want to tell you about a painting thing, because I think it gives the guy a little kudos too. But the reason was the bonding company up there wasn't really profitable. And we ran it for 3.5 years. So it was given a fair chance, but really what it came down to is if the home base, and this is where this isn't fair for me to talk about, but if the home base can't subsidize the outer one after a certain period of time, then that's just business.
Yeah.
So that's the answer to that. And so then when that was the case, as near as I can remember, and listen, this wasn't his primary source of income at all. So, and I had several things, I'm still painting houses and doing all that stuff too. But so the answer to that question is the company itself had to close up, and at the time it was just like, this, I guess this is just how it is. And I don't recall him being upset or anything like that. It was almost 2 years later. It was late 2001 that he started showing up on the news, and then your jaw really drops, and you're like, "Oh my God!"
Yeah, so that was my next question. Was so then you sort of stopped seeing each other over a period of time.
Well, even after the bonding company closed up there and didn't really need to use them, because these were all my bonds that I had to catch. Okay. Yeah. Once that was sort of cleaned up, it's not like we just never saw each other. It just, and listen, he wasn't depending on it, so it wasn't like every day we would see each other, what's next? It was what's coming up, because we didn't have that big of a, docket.
Yeah.
So, in fact, we cleaned it up so fast that it wasn't fast. It took over a year, but I've got several stories. I mean, it was amazing. And I also, hold on, I don't want to turn it into, he did all this. I'm the one that would find him. I'm the one that made the plan. It was just having him. I didn't have to connive near as much. I had a guy sitting there that, frankly, they would just throw their arms up because take a look at his picture. So you've seen it, right?
Oh, yeah, I got it. It's recording on the picture right now.
If he told you to put your hands behind your back, what would you do?
Yeah, I think I'd comply.
Hey, there's a younger one in there, too, from the early 2000s. He's put on some weight, but he still looks just as mean.
So eventually your business relationship comes to an end, and then at some point...
Yeah, and then I moved back to Denver and all that stuff. And then it really wasn't... I never thought it was an issue, and he never really tried to call me. I think I know for sure that I ran into him once or twice going back up there, but I was now relocated back to Denver. And he never asked to be a part of that or anything, and I think the reason is he had met his girlfriend. He ended up back in Denver, but, that's kind of where it just kind of separated. But, it's not like we were high school chums and all that,
Yeah.
It's kind of like a business deal that just kind of started in a weird way and faded out about a year and a half or 2 years later.
And then, so what was your reaction?
That's my recollection.
What was your... So do you remember when you first saw him on the news, or at least what your reaction was when you started hearing the news?
Well, I'm pretty sure that my wife was the first one that noticed. But it was so big that, the mugshot, Channel 7, Channel 9, Channel 4, it was huge. You probably Google it now. I'd never tried. And then it's surreal. But I don't want to overplay it either. It's not like he was, my cousin or best friend or this or that, it was a business thing that just went its way, like we talked about. But to have it pop up like that, And I was still doing bonds when it did come up. Yeah, it kind of freaks you out, and I guess I kind of didn't believe it, and I know they all say that, but now we can go into during that period of time. I don't want, this story's not really worth it, but getting the guy, the head cook, out of a truck stop in Brighton, right off the interstate, who was thoroughly protected, who I'd been trying to get for almost a year. That one was so huge that when we got him and took him to the Adams County Jail in Brighton, we went back to my place in Fort Morgan, just giving you an example. Those are the type of things where by the time we got back there and we're at my house, not driving around, well, it was a celebration. Saved me thousands of dollars. I think he got $500, and it still saved me money. I don't know if he got that much, but it was a good one. And that was the night that it's probably 2 a.m, and we're sitting at my dining room table in Fort Morgan, and he said, "So you know what RP stands for, right?" And he had to carry a certified letter allowing him to arrest people on my behalf, but only my bail bonds, people I had on bond. And I said, "Yeah, Richard Paul." And he said, "No, it means real people." And we're drunk, okay? We just got this guy. It was a big celebration. Went all the way back up there. Now we're sitting there doing shots. And he says, and just being honest, and he says, "No, it means real people. And you're real people. If you ever have any," and this is looking back. This isn't trying to be all cool by any means. This is just something that occurred to me later on. But he said, he didn't say it intensely. We've had a bunch of drinks, okay? But he says, "If anybody ever gives you a hard time, you just let me know and I'll take care of it." And I said, "That means a lot to me, but I think I should fight my own battles." And we toasted and laughed and like that. And he said, "That's what I like about you." And he goes, "You're real people." Well, it never mattered except for I was so happy we captured that guy. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
After he started killing people, then I started thinking, uh-oh, he really would have. But it also is why I don't want it to come off wrong, but there's absolutely no way it would ever hurt me. Ever. Zero. I'm still certain of it. But does that mean anything? No, doesn't mean anything. Whatever was in his head and whatever is building up and stuff like that, that was already there. And I'm probably just lucky. I don't know. I think that I'm going to say this because I don't care whether you or anybody else thinks it or not, but I think what it was is my responses probably came from Jesus, because that wasn't what was supposed to happen to me. But he did kill a guy who he wanted his truck, and when he wouldn't give it up, he shot him.
Yeah, so what was do you remember, I know you could Google it now, but just so it's on the recording, what do you remember him being convicted of, and what were his crimes?
Well, I don't know. At the time, I think he was convicted of 6 murders, and 5 of them, and again, if the details are a little wrong, if you look him up, and this is why I don't want to mention the girlfriend or anything, because I'm sure I'm telling you a little bit of a thing, and I feel a little guilty about being sort of lighthearted about it. For her, it's got to be a trauma that's never going to go away, because as I understand, the prostitutes who were the victims, he buried in her grandmother's yard. And I mean, just the thought of that when it comes out, and she doesn't know, and this is your boyfriend, and you're hanging out with them, and doing the obvious with them, and all that, and then this is what's really going on. Absolute zero justification, killing the guy who he wanted his truck. In fact, that to me, that says he was capable of anything. Was outside his pattern, I guess,
Yeah.
But apparently he was convicted of those 5 plus the other guy, so I'm pretty sure he got 5 life sentences plus all the mitigating stuff. And, he'll be gone until he's 400 years old or whatever. But he hid out for quite a while in the Black Mountains there between Castle Rock and Colorado Springs until, as I understand it, and he did tell me about his sister, but I never thought about it again until later, so I can't try to pretend to know too much about it, except I have a sister I'm really close to and I love a lot, and that's how I remember it. But apparently he found a way to tell them he would turn himself in if he was given a period of time to talk to his sister. And they arranged that. If I'm wrong, I'm wrong. If I'm wrong, I'm wrong. But the way I've always understood it is they did that. They did talk, and then he really turned himself in. And I don't mean to make him a gallant person. I'm sure that he, tough as he is, was worn out. Plus, the end's inevitable.
Yeah.
So.
All right. So, is there anything else you want to add, or do you want to wrap it up?
Well, there's one other little thing that'll always stick in my mind, and that is, remember, I was painting houses at the time, right? In fact, my main income was that. I don't know, might have been 50-50. And there was, and this matters as far as RP, and I probably should have said it before, but when you talk about whether we're hunting for somebody, a lot of times with bail bonds, what it is you've got these guys who are have skipped. You think they're going to skip. You're not sure. Especially if it's not Denver, so you don't have a whole docket full, as I said. Had to look for the word, but so you're talking about that. But in the meantime, my main thing is I'm really painting houses, and I've got other customers. It was pure hell. And I used to do the Victorian houses because they paid a lot of money down by Capitol Hill, Colfax, all of that area. And these are big, badass houses that most of them have been or were being turned in to apartments. So I would get these jobs through connections I had. Guys, didn't want to go into all that, but that's how I made my living. I made relationships, and they always gave me the work. Well, I did them by myself because I was physically able to do it, and it amazes me. But I would do them by myself, these big, gigantic houses, because I got all the money. Or sometimes I would have a helper. Well, there was one down there right off of Colfax, within a block or two, that this thing was so big that on the alley side, this goes to RP, on the alley side, it was so big that I had to set a 40-foot ladder, fully extended, in the alley with orange cones and all that, in the back of a pickup for stability, fully extended, and the thing was maybe 6 feet wide, but probably more like 4 feet wide. And I had done tons of that before and amazed myself at how fearless I could be. But ask any painter that does stuff like that, especially, in fact, off of ladders, not especially. Getting up there isn't so bad. You can get used to it. And this is a little side thing to where your left is a drop off of 45 feet to straight pavement. On your right is a big block siding wall of a big old Victorian house, and you've got about 4 to 6 feet, and you have to get off of this ladder, climb up another 10 feet, paint it, and here's the tricky part, getting back on the ladder. Ask any painter. If you can deal with going up there, that's fine. You can even get off the ladder and do it and paint it if you're fearless. But you try getting back on that ladder. It's the scariest thing you will ever do in your life.
I know that.
And this is 40 plus feet up, fully extended in the back of a pickup to raise it up, when to your left is a straight drop. Straight drop. Nothing. Pavement. Alley. And I did every single thing on this building, and that was all that was left. And I was sitting there talking to RP, and see, so it's not always about who we're hunting. He did have a job, by the way. I don't know what it was, but and I told him this one night. I said, "Man, I'm all the way to the end of this," and I said, "You know, I used to pride myself on actually doing this because nobody else would do it." And I said, "But I just can't bring myself to do it. Every time I've gone up, Jeremy, I've gone up to the top and looked and just couldn't get myself to do it. I just couldn't." And I said, "I'm on the verge of giving somebody $100 just to go up and do it." And it was a matter-of-fact thing. And he says, "I'll do it." And blah, blah, blah. The very next morning, I brought a piece of drywall, a big old piece of scrap shit you could throw in a dumpster. Hooked up I got 100 feet of hose on the sprayer gun, and I showed him and had him do this so he could get a feel of it. Sent him up with a piece of cardboard to shield the shingles as best you can, but I told him, frankly, I don't even care. You can paint them too. You know, who's going to see it? And he went, when he did, he said, "Okay, I am not exaggerating." He climbed all the way up, and I'm sure he's never done this before. He climbed all the way up, stopped for a minute, looked around. I'm clear down here looking. He climbed off the ladder. All I could hear was the little from the sprayer, you know, whatever, and the pump moving down by me. He's up there for 2 or 3 or 5 minutes maximum. He backs up. I see his legs come off. He gets back on the ladder. He comes down with like zero hesitation. I'm not exaggerating. He goes up. He's up there for 5 minutes at maximum. He comes back down the ladder with no hesitation, gets off, hands me the gun, and says, "Steve, that's the easiest $100 I ever made my whole life." And that's the only one thing I want to add. That really happened. And I couldn't get myself to do it, and I've been doing this for 10 years. Because he didn't care. Well, I didn't know he was a killer either. You know? So apparently he didn't care if he died or not. But I don't know if that's what he thought. But that one has to be added in. And I'm pretty sure we fixed it all up and Probably went to the bar.
Cool. So that's
So,
the story?
well, I guess one last thing is I
Okay.
really did, I don't want to sentimentalize it. I honestly
No,
don't.
it's just how you remember him. It doesn't mean
No,
doesn't
but,
mean he's a
there's
good
been
guy.
yeah, I really did want to, I really honestly would have said, like, you get to the window and you pick up the phone. And by this time, it was 2 full years later. He didn't start killing people until almost 2 years later. I would have said, RP, what the fuck? I don't know.
That's what you would have. So yeah. If you had
That's what I was going to say to him.
Yeah, well, if you had a chance to talk to him.
Well, the reason I didn't is it was such big news. It would have brought a lot of notoriety onto the bail bonding company, and myself, who is this guy? And none of us needed that. And I'm sure RP didn't give a shit at all. It might have been, to him, it might have been a whiff in the sand, who knows?
But if you could talk to him now, what would you ask him? Just
the first thing I would say is, you remember me? I got a lot of gray now because I used to have black hair. I might be actually disappointed if he says no. I got no idea who you are. I don't think that would happen. But it sounds like I'm glorifying it, and I really don't want to do that. I mean, I've tried to ignore the obvious stuff, strangling people and things like that. I mean, I can't imagine it. I really can't.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, that's your memories of him. Obviously, you never saw him like that. You only saw a certain side of him.
Yeah, so I shouldn't joke around. So probably in this, I won't make the joke about the book I was going to write. Hey, he was nice to me. Well, that's the thing. You can Google him on Colorado DOC.
No, he's on Murderpedia.
Oh, he is?
Murderpedia.com.
Does that mean he made the big time?
.org, I mean. Murderpedia.
You think I should go see him?
I
don't know if he'd remember me now.
I would imagine he'd remember you since you saw it.
Oh, he'll remember me.
I mean,
I
guarantee
you 100% he'll remember me.
Yeah, I'm not sure what you say in that situation.
And I'll feel guilty. No, I'm just kidding.
Plus, he's in Supermax.
But
remember,
his girlfriend, who I really do feel bad about, is connected to us and stuff.
Yeah.
Not majorly, but so there's no doubt he'll remember me. I don't want to make myself fun. It just blows my mind because, obviously his life is finished and he knows that, but it kind of shows you what somebody's potential would have been if he would have not gone down whatever path he did, and his dad really was a sheriff. He could have been a great law enforcement officer. You never know why these things happen, but my guess is his alter ego, in the other universe, he could have been a stellar person. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Saving people. Who knows? Kind of crazy, though, huh?